Hello, everyone. Welcome to another insightful episode of Empower Her Voices podcast series. And today, in this episode, we aim to inspire, enlighten, and empower women and young girls through a deep dive into our guests' expertise in rehabilitation medicine, holistic health, and the transformative power of yoga and mindfulness. And we will also explore how these practices foster well being, help women managing stress, and promote leadership skills in both personal and professional spaces. This episode is designed to motivate young girls to build healthy habits from an early age and empower women to prioritize self care while leading change in their communities. And today we have the honor to host Dr. Susannah Ward for this episode. She's a highly accomplished specialist physician in rehabilitation medicine with over 1.5 decades of experience. She's also the founder of Ataraxia Collective and the author of Mastering Real Wellness, dedicated to advancing holistic health and leadership in healthcare. Dr. Ward serves as the chair of the RACP Member Health and Wellbeing Committee, and she is a board director at Mood Active. She's also a yoga and mindfulness meditation teacher, a passionate advocate for health professional well-being, and a speaker and workshop facilitator. And beyond her clinical expertise, she is a published author, a medical and well-being writer, and a researcher focused on doctor health and medical culture change. She also plays a key role in facilitating physician CPD and well-being retreats, helping medical professionals prioritize their health and professional growth. It is an honor to have Dr. Ward on Empower Her Voices podcast as she share her insight on overcoming barriers in healthcare and leadership. Dr. Susannah Ward, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here on our podcast. And with your expertise and skills, I'm sure this episode is definitely going to be really insightful. Thank you so much for giving us your time.
Oh, Faiza, thank you so much. That was a very generous introduction and made me feel, you know, very accomplished. So thank you so much. That's really appreciative. And well done on your podcast. I think what you're doing is fabulous and what you stand for. And I know it's early days and it's an absolute privilege to be on episode 12. So keep doing what you're doing. It is so meaningful and valuable. So let's get cracking. How can I empower your listeners?
Well, likewise, and support from accomplished leaders and professionals like yourself is really going to mean a lot because the sole purpose is actually to enlighten the women out there who are actually the future, and they hold the future in their hands. So it really matters a lot. So, Dr. Susanna, your expertise has a unique journey. Can you take us back to the beginning, inspired where it inspired you to pursue rehabilitation medicine? Was there a pivotal moment that led you to integrate to holistic health?
Yes. Okay. So I love that you just used the word unique. I've always been described as unique, and I used to see it as a character flaw. Like I was like, oh, there's something wrong with me. But as I get older and wiser, I realize diversity is key. And if you can bring your unique strengths, character, passion to whatever you do, you will be more fulfilled as an individual because you won't be walking around wearing a mask and you'll feel
Yeah.
expressive. You'll be contributing something that no one else in this world can contribute.
Hmm.
I found medicine because my dad is a doctor. There's a funny joke in my family where I'm Susannah Ward, and what do you call a bunch of wards? And it's, a hospital. And, monkey see, monkey do. I'm very privileged. I grew up in Sydney, Australia. And so I was able to get excellent education and really took a pick. In hindsight, I probably would have been a much better fashion designer or something creative. I was very intuitively creative. And that's okay because, as you've said, I've designed my own career that's really unique and very creative, whilst also
Sure.
honouring my roots, which is to be a public servant and to help people and also a scientist. So I found rehab because I was really disillusioned with medicine. It wasn't at all what I expected. It was really, quite frankly, brutal, the junior years of
Okay.
study. and training in the public hospital system. I know that this, you speak to an international audience, and I'm in Australia, so the conditions in Australia will be very different compared to other places. But essentially, me as a sensitive soul that feels deeply and thinks very broadly, I found it unrewarding and draining, and I found myself in burnout. I took a year off and thought, well, what do I do? And I ended up finding rehab because it ticks a lot of boxes for me. It's holistic. So it's a team. You're working with physios, social workers, psychologists, nurses, and together you're working on practical things to empower that patient and get them home. It's all about heart and values, and a lot of the time getting people home or reestablishing them somewhere else and really supporting them through that. So it's a really special area of medicine that's quite unique. But also it had a great lifestyle. So there's no nights when you train in rehab. And I unfortunately do not have the constitution for night work. I need a very structured routine sleep-wake cycle. That's just, I'm that type of brain. And I had to accept that. So there were a lot of things that I wanted to do that I couldn't do. And the lifestyle of rehab, not only working as a fellow, but also training, was way more conducive to sustainable holistic health. I found my passion for a more holistic approach in medicine basically through my lived experience of being human. I was so privileged to experience medical science degree with honours and then medicine and surgery with honours. But the more I was exposed to these Western evidence-based practices, the more limitations I saw. And there's so many variables, and a lot of the studies that we lean on are up for drugs. There is a very sort of big focus in Western medicine on medication prescription and taking more of a band-aid approach. And as I got older and I found my own resilience and health in things like yoga, it got me through my training, and I not only got through, but I did very well and won the award for the fellowship prize, which I attribute to my mindfulness skills. So I could see how powerful these things like, balanced eating, movement, sleep prioritization, being in nature, restorative and empowering practices like yoga or mindfulness. I found these things to really have a very powerful influence on my general health and well-being, and also my relationship with myself that governs really the choices I make and whether or not I make healthy choices that are leading to good health outcomes. And so I started to try and integrate the two more to my practice, because being able to speak to patients about, well, why are you making, not just like, don't eat the cake, it's going to give you diabetes. You've got an amputation. Why are you eating cake? Your sugar's 16. They've got to be under 8. That's not, it's very judgmental. It's very unhelpful, really. So it's more about diving deep with the patient. Like, why are you making these choices? Is there anything healthy in your house? Are you actually just exhausted and eating cake because you need the sugar? Like, just empowering them with some self-awareness and skills to have more autonomy in their health choices. So yeah, I could go on for ages, but I hope that answers your first question.
Yes, it's very insightful. And there were two things which really grabbed my attention. Obviously, what you have shared, tremendous journey, and it's been realizing. You said that rehabilitation is more about through heart and values, if I'm not wrong, right? And it really clicked me. And then you said that the relationship with myself, when you talked about yoga, and that first we need to realize how we are prioritizing things with our own self. And unfortunately, with the fast-paced life that we all have today, to somehow, somewhere, some extent, we tend to ignore our own self when it comes to our own health. And this is why we are here today, and we're glad because we wanted to actually go towards the roots that you said that. Yes, I totally agree with you when it comes to Western medicine. So it's all about going towards those high doses of medicines, which obviously have some side effects as well. We can't say that they don't. And when it comes to mindfulness or yoga, so the first thing that comes into our mind, so it's like peace, we are at calm, these words are going to do, but still people needs a lot of awareness. So talking about yoga and the role of yoga and mindfulness in women's health, so women particularly in healthcare and leadership roles often put their well-being at stake. From your experience, so how do you yoga and mindfulness help women reclaim balance, manage stress, and how they can actually turn it to something very powerful? As you said that this thing was the most powerful technique when it comes to your own life, so how can they actually implement this thing?
Oh man, I love this question. This could be a whole podcast. As if you do yoga,
Right.
people go, "Oh, I can't do yoga because I'm not flexible," and like it's just
Yes.
so much more than that. For me, yoga saved me at a time where I really was needing to connect with myself and learn some
Mhm.
self-mastery. So yoga for me, and I know it's slightly different for everyone, and there's so many types of yoga and there's so many styles and studios and practices. So if you can find one that resonates with you, you are a lucky one, right? Because there's a lot of people that never connect with it. So it is a blessing. It is a privilege. It is, it's really special because not everyone connects with yoga. But if you can, go there. Just dive deep. Let it take you where it needs to take you. So for me, yoga was very much behavioral psychology. I learned so much on the mat. It wasn't chat talk. I wasn't reading a self-help book. I was doing the work on the mat. When I first found yoga, I realized I was so disconnected from my body because I had just been, it was ego, study, train the mind. Like I was very much connected. My awareness was connected to my mind. So yoga allowed me to balance out that wiring in my body and reconnect to sensations in my physical body, as well as noticing the mind, noticing the breath. So you start to have this flexibility of where you choose to place
Right.
your attention. So masterful. You
Hmm.
still got the thoughts there, but maybe you're also noticing how you feel in your body. And maybe you're noticing the reactions to a certain pose, like
Hmm.
like I don't want to do chair pose because it's really hard and annoying. And you're
Hmm.
building
True.
distress tolerance. You're sitting in, I did tend to do more of a vigorous practice, like a hot power vinyasa is my absolute favorite. It's very hard to find these days, unfortunately, because yoga comes in and out of
Hmm.
fashion. At the moment where I live, it's very fashionable to do reformer Pilates. Anyway,
Okay.
yeah. So I loved the fact that yoga would take you to places where you would be working hard, but also breathing through it. That's an incredible skill to take off the mat. That you'd be working
Okay.
hard and noticing negative thoughts or get out, go, and you'd be staying anyway, letting them flow, breathing through it. Amazing skill for doctors. It really helped. It was, for me, yoga was very much about a moving meditation and building that mindfulness muscle power, because the more you do mindfulness, the more you're rewiring your brain. So it was highly effective for me because I would go to a 60-minute practice once a day when I could before I had kids.
Okay.
Um,
Right.
it is so powerful, but it's not for everyone. And you don't have to do yoga to have those skills. It's just one gateway point to it. But yeah,
Hmm.
it also helps you create that balance of awareness, but also recognizing when you need to step in and say, I'm exhausted, and take a rest. And, one of the coolest yogis I ever practiced with just stayed in child pose the whole time. I was next to her. I didn't know her, but she literally just was in child's pose for 60 minutes. And I was like, wow, she is doing the work, And I don't know what she was going through, but she did what she needed. And I think that yoga teaches you that sometimes you have to give yourself permission to honor your body and whatever you
Yes.
need, so that then in real life you can do that too, which is really hard. If yoga is not for you, another practice that anyone could do would be a mindfulness-based stress reduction practice called STOP. So mindfulness-based stress reduction is an evidence-based 6-week mindfulness thing you can do. It's by John Kabat-Zinn. He's a researcher in mindfulness based in the States. So STOP stands
Right.
for stop what you're doing, take a breath, observe everything going inside and outside of you, and then proceed aligned with your values. And so when I was a trainee, I used to set an alarm on my phone for when I arrived at work, at lunch, and when I was jumping in the car leaving to go home. And I'd just do the stop. And it was just a nice way of circuit breaking that rat race in your mind of getting through the day and going, whoa, present moment. The other things you can do is embrace and make the most of mundane moments. So for me, hanging out the washing, that's an opportunity to do it mindfully. Having coffee just optimizes my enjoyment of coffee. Brushing your teeth, if you're parenting, these can be little trigger points to go, I'm going to do this mindfully. So integrating into your real life, because, we're not all monks and we can't all go sit in caves. And maybe we don't have time and money to do yoga. So I think each morning just taking breaks and trying to integrate some sort of mindfulness or yoga into your work life and role modeling it. Don't be shy. Don't be afraid of being the leader that has a yoga mat in their office. I mean, that's the cool leader as far as I'm concerned. Because ultimately these practices will increase your focus, your vitality, your strength, and your productivity as a leader.
Wonderful. So it's about, Dr. Ward, it's about, like you just mentioned, that, we have to allow ourselves. You use this term self permission. So this is like very interesting that yoga, you said, is not for everyone out there. It's about acceptance of that thing. Is it like in our body and mind both? Like they both should accept this practice, otherwise we have mindfulness, right? So that's something great. So, and you also said that we need to take breaks. For example, most of the women here in Pakistan as well, they are like working in different professions out there, and at times people are stressed out, especially when it comes to Monday. There's a lot of pressure when it comes to the corporate world. So they can also do the mindfulness practice that you said, stop, the one in which you said, okay, take, observe. They can also do it like, multiple times throughout the day, or is it just like when they're going to start the day, they can just go for it?
Whatever works, whatever you can do once a
Okay.
day, multiple times. I think not making it a pressure, just making it
Okay.
a little moment of relief and reprieve, but also a
Hmm.
beautiful practice to schedule into your routine. You can do it at a desk. I mean, when you're doing the stop practice, you could do
Yeah.
it in a
Yeah.
meeting. No one knows. It's secret.
Great. So they should be easy on themselves. It's not they're going to take stress out of it, right? That's great. So okay, so talking about, we just talk about the habits as well. Like you said, we have to have short breaks, and then we need to rewire our brain. So coming towards the habits that we build from early age, and especially the young girls. So how do you think introducing mindfulness can actually ensure the holistic health practices, because yoga is something you have already told about, that that's another aspect. So how do parents or how the educators can actually ensure that they are creating awareness for the holistic health, maybe if the girls are at home or if the women are out there in the work, or when it comes to educators? So what's the waypoint from where they can start?
I think role modeling for sure,
Okay.
and making it seen. As I said, like you could start a meeting doing a little stop technique. You could share resources to your team via email. Like, oh, I found this really cute little self-care thing and I started playing with it. I'd be interested to
Mm,
know if anyone else does this.
yeah.
Setting a culture of prioritizing your health and self-care and role
Mm,
modeling as a leader really does speak a lot to the people watching you, and it gives them
mm,
permission to do it. So packing a healthy lunch, taking a walk on your lunch break, inviting your colleagues, things like
mm,
that. I used to go to hospital with a salad and everyone else was eating, whatever cafeteria food. And you could see people were interested. They're
mm,
like, oh, what have you got? And, now people do pack their lunches and things like that. So it's,
mm,
there's so many things you can do just by doing it for yourself. I think incorporating these things into school curriculums is really important. So mindfulness is now
yeah.
incorporated into the Australian primary school curriculum. And I see my son,
Okay.
who's 6, he just finished kindy. They do things like movement breaks and creative brain breaks, where it's integrated into their daily schedule.
Lovely.
They have a garden that they go to once a week and look at the plants and learn about the plants with the gardeners. So there's so many ways that educators can be creative to integrate holistic skills and tools and education that can nurture someone's well-being. I think it's really important in the young to talk about this. It's such a good question because as we get older, we develop more exposure to stress, and we also develop more freedom. You know, we don't have as many, like we don't have our parents helicoptering, making our decisions for you. So if you have some skills and tools to adapt in and cope in ways that work for you and empower you, then it just gives young kids more options. And then that makes it more likely when they're adults not to have maladaptive habits. So we all need to cope. We all need to escape. We all need to numb out and avoid. These are things that we need to do sometimes to survive. Sometimes we don't need those things. Sometimes we need to engage, solve problems, and get in there. But having some skills that you can turn to when you are really struggling with some challenge that actually empowers you, like a walk or yoga or going for a surf. Like I know you guys may not have, I live near a beach, but I always wish that I knew how to surf. You know, when I was a young trainee, I would go to the pub and have drinks, but then there were some that would go for a surf, and I didn't actually have that skill. You know, I would have loved to have gone for it. So just things like that shake off the day, release the stress, because stress is inevitable, right? But the way that we manage it, shake it off, you know, deal with it, that is what's either going to contribute to burnout and physical burnout, or empower you and restore you so that you get a good night's sleep, wake up, start again. So I think things like educating people about having routine and structure, sharing skills, tools, hobbies, sports, things like that. You know, we see it in the primary school with the kids, and you just hope that they continue it as adults, because we are all still just big kids.
Yeah, very well said. And you're right that, stress is actually inevitable and we don't need to actually get through escape. We have to deal with it. And that's true. And by keeping in view, you just mentioned about that, at times there's this point with this like burnout, right? And then we really need to relieve that stress. So rather than extending ourselves to a point where we are burnout, it's much better to, work early so that we're not reaching at that point. So, burnout is actually epidemic, and especially among young women juggling demanding careers and personal responsibilities. So, what are the early warning signs of burnout, and what strategies have you found most effective in helping women recover and build sustainable well-being? Because you have mentioned about sustainable well-being, and that was something really interesting for me as well, because I'm sure the audience and I also wanted to know about what this sustainable well-being and how is it connected with this thing.
Yeah, so burnout is I really like, if you Google burnout and the World Health Organization site, I'm just reading from it now. I really like this because it says that it's not a medical condition. It's not caused by mental illness. It's actually a consequence of the workplace and workplace stresses. So it's a syndrome characterized by resulting from chronic workplace stress that's not been successfully managed, where you have feelings of energy depletion. So core to burnout is that exhaustion. But also mental distance from one's job. So things like cynicism, disconnect, dissociation. In medicine, we see a lot of like compassion fatigue, or even moral injury, like, not being able to provide the care that they know the patient needs. It's really hurtful. So we sort of like numb out and avoid. And then just reduce professional efficacy. So reduce productivity. You're literally not on top of your game. You've burnt out. So it's really important. It can be really similar to depression. And so it's very important that if you've noticed the early warning signs, so like changes in appetite and sleep, those sorts of characteristics of exhaustion and low energy, not really want to engage in work and just not pulling off all the tasks, that you should see your GP and exclude a psychiatric condition or mood disorder. And you might need some bloods to make sure like your iron and thyroid function's okay. And then if it really is diagnosed as a burnout, then what you need to do is acknowledge it, own it. You got to call it for what it is. I'm burnt out. Take away the judgment. This is not a failure in your character. As you said, this is an epidemic. Unfortunately, there's like 70% of physicians are burnt out. We've got a serious New South Wales health workforce shortage crisis at the moment. Everyone's just burnt out and leaving. So you would not be alone. And it's not just medicine. It's many aspects of working, because our lives are so chaotic now. I mean, we are now working in the environment of AI, where we're even expected to do more and quicker. We're just getting faster and faster. It's not healthy. It's not sustainable. So the way we used to live, many, many years ago, decades and maybe even hundreds of years ago, is so different from this modern day life. I mean, even we have the light bulb, which means that we stay up late and we don't sleep properly. So many things. So I think we need to be really compassionate with ourselves about our human limitations. These are not failures of, your character or as a leader. This is just normal human responses to this ridiculous life that we're expected to be living. So I think acknowledge it. Then the next thing is do what you need to do. No one's going to come save you. This is our work. This is our responsibility. These are our needs. And we are the ones that need to assert boundaries. And asserting boundaries is our skill. It is so hard. You would not be the first person who struggles with the boundaries, but boundaries are our action. It's not trying to control someone else. It's that we assert an action and we empower ourselves with that boundary. And it will feel hard, and there probably will be fear and shame and all sorts of emotional challenges that come up. We don't want to feel those things, but ultimately we have to acknowledge and accept where we're at as human bodies and minds and beings. And then you need to prioritize sleep. You need to get professional help, take time off, indulge in all those nurturing, healing hobbies that you may be aware of. And if you're noticing the first signs, but you're not quite there, then maybe it's time to, assert those boundaries rather than taking time off completely, and just trying to find out what are the stresses that you have some power over. So there's a lot of stress that you won't be able to change. You need to accept them. But then there's probably quite a lot of stuff there that you've got some autonomy to modify. That's where you focus, and you try and nut out those issues. And then reflect on what is it about your work that you love, because there's some evidence that if you can make 20% of your work what you love, that's really combative to prevent burnout. So for example, with me, I love connection with patients. So I will easily get burnt out if I'm not actually really spending any time with the patient. I'm just ordering bloods, finishing the paperwork, blah, 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 blah. But as soon as you actually have a chat with the patient and have a laugh and share with them and just be this system's mental together and empower them, get them involved, all of a sudden that day was really meaningful because I was able to show up to work embodying my values and priorities, which is really rewarding for me. I feel like there was another part to your questions. How do you make sustainable practice?
Yes, you have just answered it, because when you were saying that, that earlier when we used to live without this AI, the life was at a regular pace, right? And you said that now with AI, we need to just speed it up, and everything is just going like a robot, like a machine. So yes, and when we talk about, yeah, you have actually beautifully narrated that. I was just like, okay, because you have connected it with the life that we used to live earlier as compared to the life that we are living right now. But still, you have given a very insightful advice that we need to be very compassionate. I really liked it when you said we need to be compassionate with ourselves. And even when it comes to my own self or with my colleagues and the people around me in education sector, at times, yes, we are not compassionate with ourselves. So yes, if we are not, and if there are certain signs, we first need to acknowledge it. And I totally agree with you that acknowledgement is really important. Otherwise, denial is not going to take us anywhere. That is something really important. And in this thing, I guess when it comes to professional life and even personal, leadership is something which really plays a great role. So leadership, because what we think leadership, okay, being a leader is about decision making, whereas it's not. Leadership is not just about decision making. So it's more about the well-being, both personal and physical, because a leader is someone who's inspiring us. and it's all about inspiration. So, how does prioritizing self-care make women leaders, go better in terms of their not decision making, in terms of their leadership traits, and what shifts need to happen in workplace culture to ensure that the well-being becomes a leadership priority rather than something which is at the side and they're just going to talk about it.
Yeah. Well, I think the first part is like, why is self care and prioritizing your holistic health needs and well being so important to leadership? So, if you think about, I speak about this in my book, that real wellness, that ultimate sort of well being feeling comes from fostering a healthy relationship with yourself, which is the most important relationship of your life. Why? Because if you can meet your holistic health needs, you create safety in your entire being, right? Physical safety, psychological safety. Without safety, there's no well-being. This is like the fundamental thing, and then once you have that safety where you can show up as a healthy adult, like nurturing your inner child, like you may want the third piece of cake, but actually as a healthy adult, you go, no, just enjoy the one, go for a walk. Or you may want to just stay back late and finish that report because finishing things feels so good. But you go, no, you've worked a solid, 8-hour day. That's normal. You're not an AI, you're a human. Go home, be with your family, use the spare time to do something nurturing for yourself. If you can do those things, you have that sense of self-trust, agency, safety, all of these good, juicy things to live with as an individual. That's the foundation to then be a change maker, to ruffle feathers, speak up, to be of service, and really get out there, because you need that foundation of care in order to do that stuff, because that stuff's stressful. That stuff will rattle you to your core, and you've got to be like a mountain. So the best leaders in the world did have these skills and boundaries, because if you go out there without that, you'll spiral and it will lead to nothing. And you'll get, quite unwell quite quickly and lose yourself. So leadership, as you said, is very much about leading by example and supporting and encouraging your team. It's about creating a workplace culture where you have shared values and basically conditions that allow your team to flourish and thrive and be productive. And a lot of that is actually just letting them make the choices, but, like a dolphin, like nudging them in the right direction. And you can't tell people what to do. You just offer them the resources, you have it there, and you do it yourself and you show them how that's done. So I think they are some simple things that leaders can think about a bit more. Yeah. I also think the other thing that's happening in Australia, and especially in medicine, is making leaders leaders need to be made accountable. So in the sense of like work health and safety regulations, there's a legislation
Right.
that's recently changed in Australia, which makes the leaders of hospital accountable for the safety and well-being of their workers. Because I think, I think, how can we change this stuff? Well, there's got to be a consequence.
Accountability. Yeah, I really like it that they have actually, okay, so there's a proper constitution of, making them accountable for the well-being. That's great. So I'm sure it must be going very well for the people around you, because obviously there are leaders and then there's a team who are following their leaders. And when overall there's this good impact, the whole environment is going to have, feel this ripple effect.
Yeah.
That's really great. Yeah.
I think.
So you just thought, yeah. Please go ahead.
Sorry about the time delay. Because
No problem.
whereabouts are you, Pfizer?
Sorry?
Whereabouts are you?
Okay, so I was asking about the well-being bit that you just said.
Location-wise, did you say you're in Pakistan?
So please go back. I'm based in Lahore, Pakistan. So it's like 5:42 a.m.
How am I? Sorry.
Yeah.
Can you
No,
connect
no,
me
no,
with
no.
Christmas in Australia, and
It's
it's
absolutely fine because you're up because of the prayer time that we have early morning. So it's perfectly aligned with that bit as well. Yeah.
anyway, that's why there's the time delay. But this is one of those amazing, making the most of technology, connecting and sharing, collaborating.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
great. But no, what I was going to say for leaders, I mean, if you want some tips and trips, it's people need to be seen, heard, and considered. And then if you really want to leverage your team, you talk about the values of the organization. You ask them what theirs are. You say, what do you think of ours? And so you start to create this shared understanding of the values that then guide how they
Hmm.
come to work and show up and express themselves.
Hmm.
And if you can then
Yeah.
ask them, like, what are the problems and what are the solutions, and then get them involved in those interventions, then all of a sudden you've got a really engaged team that can see the silver lining and have all those ingredients to feel safe at work. Because being seen, heard, and considered is very conducive to feeling safe. And as I said earlier, we need that sense of physical and psychological safety to
Yeah.
flourish and have
So
well-being.
true, true. And it's rightly said, you just being seen, heard, and considered. So considered is about acknowledgement, am I right?
Absolutely. So
Okay, great, great.
if you're filling a roster for your team and you can see there's some gaps and you are
Yeah.
like, oh well, this person will do it, like just the simple thing of chatting with them, like there's some gaps here, I don't want to
Yeah.
overwhelm
Yeah.
you, what's going on in your life, would you like these shifts, and if not, I wonder
Hmm.
if we can together work out another plan. I don't just being thought of, being cared for.
True, true. So you just mentioned about your book, like real wellness. What actually real wellness? You said that it's about fostering relationship with your own self. So can you share some key insights and how if the women and the girls out there, they want to reach out to this book? So what is especially when it comes to balancing their personal and professional life, how this book or the knowledge that you have actually gathered and you've put into this book is going to help them, because it at the end of the day again it's the holistic health that we are talking about. So just some
Yeah.
key insights from this real wellness, mastering real wellness.
Yeah, or I'll just cut straight to the chase then. So that real wellness, that feeling of contentment, stability, making the most of yourself and your life, it comes from self-mastery. If you don't have that, you can take all the supplements in the world, you can do all the yoga, you can sleep for days, you can have boundaries, but you can look a certain way, whatever. But if you have self-mastery, then you will be well. So self-mastery, as I put it, is three things. It's self-awareness, self-acceptance, and adaptive, flexible self-care. Those things are skills that can be learnt and taught, and that you have to have a commitment to these things over a lifetime. It's a practice. It's not perfect. I don't
Hmm.
every day, like I don't make all the best choices all of the time every day, but I have, like,
Yes.
most of the time I can show up in the way that I need, and I can honestly share that I feel well and I live my best life. So I feel like the wellness industry, especially in Western culture, is sold to us
Mhm.
based off our fears and insecurities. We're trying to fit in, we're trying to be
Hmm.
good
True.
enough. So it's this
True.
external focus. We're looking for something out there to make us feel good. And those things are great, and
Hmm.
they can be part of your unique wellness recipe, because everyone's is different. Not everyone, as we said, needs yoga. But if you don't understand and accept and know how to care for yourself and have some skills and tools to do that, then you will struggle and potentially even suffer. And what
Hmm.
we're looking at in health these days internationally is the huge rate of non-communicable illness. So things like metabolic disease, lifestyle illnesses, right?
Hmm.
So if you've got that healthy, adult, caring relationship with yourself, you are much less likely to make unhealthy choices all of the time that lead to these, conditions. And even if you do have chronic disease and disability, you've empowered yourself to be able to care for that as best you can, because
Hmm.
ultimately you're only ever going to be you. You're not going to be
Yeah.
her or him or the way you were 20 years ago. You're just you right now.
True.
And the question is, how can I show
Yes.
up for myself right now
Hmm.
ways I need to be my most well. And that's not something a doctor can prescribe as a pill. So
Hmm.
unfortunately, it's a little bit harder than easier said than
Yeah.
done, but it's the way to live. And it's, you see this written in so many other books, in so many religions, and so many cultures, the same key messages. Um, so understand your humanness, your inner world, your needs, your values. Accept yourself with skills and acceptance like self-compassion, and then equip yourself early on or for the rest of your life. Experiment with ways and skills to care for yourself in the ways you need. And this is accessible to anyone at any age. So you can be old, you can have disease, disability, you can hate mindfulness, but you can still be really well if fundamentally you follow that
Hmm.
recipe. Um, yeah. And
Yeah,
if you want to
that's
buy the book,
great.
the book
Hmm.
is available
Sure.
on Amazon. You can buy it on my
Amazon.
website.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So if you can just mention your website again, I'm also going to share it in the blog as well for the audience to reach out. So it's
Great.
www dot.
Ataraxia Collective. So ATARAXIACOLLECTIVE.com.au. So ataraxia is a Stoic term. I'm not sure if you're across Stoicism. I'm not
Okay.
necessarily Stoic. I tend to sort of try and get all the wisdom from all the lineages. Um,
Right.
but it basically means bliss and peace and inner tranquility. So it's a really cool word that's not very commonly used in Australia, but also terrible for a website because it's very hard to spell. But I'm a bit stuck like that, and I've stuck with it over the years. So yeah, if you go to my site, you can read about me and the retreats I run, doctors, and the book, and you know.
Yeah, we would love to visit the website, and I'm definitely sure that even when it comes to educators, they're very concerned about and they're very keen into reading stuff because then they need to let their learners know about this. So, Dr. Susanna, thank you so much for this insightful conversation. And trust me, this is something that we all needed and that we all need as well. Because when it comes to women, and it's all about this series is all about empowering women, and in every part of the globe, we all are somehow somewhere suffering from one thing, that is that we're disconnected from ourselves. And I really like the way when you said that, we have to be compassionate with ourselves. We are disconnected. When we are disconnected with ourselves, then this compassion bit is obviously going to affect our whole well-being. So I would rather the narrative or the perceptions that we used to have, even myself, regarding, okay, mindfulness and yoga is about we're doing exercises, connecting, and like this. So it's a lot more than that. So what I've understood from this whole episode, that it's actually about, we are diving deep into our own self. That fine, first we need to acknowledge what exactly is bothering us, then we take it like step by step. So this is like a whole process. And I'm sure that the young girls out there and the women out there, if you're going to even pick, there's a lot that Dr. Susannah has shared. And even if you're going to pick one thing step by step and you're going to start implementing, that is definitely going to create an impact in your life. Because if you will be feeling fresh, if you are healthy mentally and physically, only then you'll be able to do something for your own self first to start with, and then comes your family, your professional life, or your personal life. And this is what we want. So, Dr. Susanna, before that we wrap up, any piece of advice that, because you've already covered a lot, when it comes to the advices, this whole episode is like a collection of beautiful advices that is going to help us a lot, and we are grateful for that. So, any advice that for the housewives or for the professional ladies out there, when it comes to the overall bit of this thing, this holistic and sustainable well-being?
Ultimately, you've got this. You can do this. Your well-being and your holistic health needs and boundaries, these are yours to do. And I honestly believe that anyone can make the most of what they've got with these skills. So just shine your light, share your light, and be the light. And in yoga, we say namaste.
Oh wow! It's sorry if you can repeat it. It's shine your light.
Shine your light, share your light, and be the light.
Oh wow! Shine your light to the light and be your light. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Susanna, for your time, and we'll always remember your support because this is something that we have started initially from Pakistan, obviously, but now we are trying to scale it globally because when it comes to useful advice from accomplished leaders like yourself, it's always something that we all need to cherish because at the end of the day it's again about our own well-being. It is going to affect us and then it will impact the people around us. So thank you so much and thank you to the viewers as well. And whenever you have time, do visit the website that Dr. Susannah has mentioned, and we are also going to mention it in the blurb. And this Real Wellness, this book in which Dr. Susannah has mentioned that it's about self-awareness, acceptance, and the third was about self-care, if I'm not wrong.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
okay. So this is
manage.
something very important and yeah. So rather than just going with a sentence or quotation randomly being picked up from anywhere, please, just try to connect with yourself. Try, as I said previously, that even if you are going to pick one thing which Dr. Susanna has said, that is going to leave a long lasting impact. And we need to be compassionate with ourselves. We need to know what's exactly going inside us before that we are going to land into any emergency in any hospital, God forbid. So this episode will be actually food for thought for all of us that where exactly we are standing when it comes to holistic and sustainable well-being. Are we actually doing it, or are we somewhere in the middle of the journey or doing very well? So it's like an ongoing journey that we need to do. So stay healthy, and as Dr. Susanna said, that keep shining, right? You have your light inside and keep shining and spreading that light around yourself, and in which obviously the community is also going to get impacted. So thank you so much, and see you again with another episode of Empower Her Voices. And a big thank you to our guest for making her out because the schedule that you have, I'm sure it was jam packed, but still you took time out. So thank you so much, and thank you everyone.